Hi there guys. So, like it says in the titles, I'm going to do a review on the Mora Bushcraft Black knife. Now I've had this knife now for coming up to about a year. So I thought, I've had plenty of time to use it, play with it, get a really good idea of how I feel about the knife, and yeah, it's a really good knife. I've used it for all sorts. I've used it in all sorts of different areas, from woodlands to on the coast. I've used it on various different tasks, and it's performed really well. So I'll go into some of the details of it in a minute, but I'll just sort of show you. It comes with a black plastic sheath that has this dangler belt loop. Well, it's more of a belt loop really, but it moves around. It's not rigid, so you can and it holds fairly firm. So when you've got it on you, you can sort of like change the angle a bit. I think over time this will wear out and it will become a lot more loose. But so far, like I say, I've had it for about 11 months now, and this knife comes out with me all the time. And yeah, it's made from quite a good strong material, and it has, even now, still plenty of grip on the knife there, where I can actually push to open it. So I'll just go through a few specifics with it. The blade length itself is 103 millimeters in length. It's got a Scandi grind on it, which is probably one of the more favourable types of grinds when it comes to the knife. The handle itself has got like a rubberized coating on it, which gives you really good grip. You feel very confident even when your hands get sweaty or wet. Never had any failings yet. It feels really comfortable in the hand. I haven't got particularly broad hands, so if you did have really broad hands, this might feel a little bit small. But for me, it sits in there just perfectly. It came pretty darn sharp. Like a lot of bushcrafters, we get a bit obsessed about having a really sharp blade, so we get it sort of razor sharp, and this isn't quite razor sharp at the moment, so I haven't stropped it. I think the reason why they call it Bushcraft Black is because they've given this like an anodized coating, and it's to help prevent rust. Now it does say even on their website that you still need to treat it with an oil, because I found that even with the anodizing, the rust does come through. It's only a thin coating, but it is handy because it stops a lot of that reflective shine that comes off knives, especially on a day like today when you've got a lot of sunlight, and particularly low sun. So yeah, that's quite helpful. On this edition, it has a 90-degree spine, which is comes in really handy for using with a ferricidium rod for lighting fires. I've used this loads now. In fact, I don't use a normal striker. I generally tend to just use my knife, and the angle on there is still pretty sharp. It's really tough. And I think the reason why it is really tough is because they heat treat this blade as well, and it's made from carbon steel. It's got a good carbon steel, so it's really rigid, very good for battening down with. The blade is a nice thickness, It's 3.2mm thick, the actual blade itself. It's really strong, very rigid. I've battened through some fairly hefty pieces of wood with this and it's been fine. I've not had a problem with it whatsoever. But yeah, it just feels generally really comfortable in the hand. And for a knife that retails for around 35 to 40 pounds, I think it's a bargain. You know, I don't think you're going to get much better in terms of quality. I mean, yeah, they're just a superb knife. Mora, I think, generally are well known for making extremely good quality knives, and this one is definitely up there. Like I say, I've had it now for around about, I bought it just after Christmas. I think it was in between Christmas and New Year last year. It's now the end of October, so yeah, around 10 months, let's call it, that I've had it. Yeah, really good knife. It's lightweight. I think the knife itself, not necessarily including the sheath, weighs in at 245 grams if I remember rightly, so it doesn't feel heavy at all. But also again, it feels really nicely balanced. I believe the tang, I did struggle to find the information on this, but I believe the tang is about 3/4 tang, so it runs to round about there. It would have been nice that it was a full length tang in there, but I don't believe that Mora do many full length tangs knives that I'm aware of. But yeah, like I say, for 35 to 40 quid, I paid 35 for mine. It's a fantastic knife. You're not going to get much better for the quality. Well, in terms of for the price versus the quality, like I said, Mora do very good knives, all the way from their really cheap composition ones, which you can pick up for about £13. I do have one of those. I was given one of those earlier this year by a subscriber, and yeah, that's a really good knife. My daughter uses that from time to time when we're out camping, and yeah, it's a really good knife. You can, you know, they do a broad range of knives. They do this in a couple of variations. You can get one which has a fire steel attached to it. They are a lot more expensive. And I believe they do a slightly larger version as well. But yeah, I know this is just a short video. It's not very often that I do review videos. I like to use kit for a good length of time, really, before I give my thoughts on them. But I thought, you know, I've had this a good length of time now. It's a really good knife. If you were definitely wanting a budget bushcraft survival knife, then you're not going to go wrong with this at all. Other feature I've just realised and just remembered, it does have a drain hole at the bottom, so if you're having to go through a river or it's absolutely teeming it down with rain and water was getting in, the water won't just sit there, it will drop out. But you'll want to get that knife dry as quickly as possible and treat it with some oil. I generally try to treat mine every time I use it. What I use for mine is I just use fat, usually pork lard. Just get a little bit and just on your finger and just coat it on there. Usually do that after I've stropped it, and yeah, that protects it pretty well. But you can use all sorts of, you know, various different oils. You can use gun oil, WD-40. You want something that's, you know, reasonably thin. You don't want to. I wouldn't use vegetable oils. like particularly like sunflower oil or olive oil, because that tends to goes really thick once it starts to dry, and you know, it goes really sticky. So I stick to something like a light oil. Like I say, I personally use fat, but you want to make sure that it's good, well rendered fat, because fat, if it's still got like a high moisture content. So I've noticed when I've been cooking things like bacon and I've got the fat on the knife from the bacon, that does rust it. That will also be because of the salts that's in the meat that's in there, and that'll help corrode the knife. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this. This sort of answers some questions. If people are, you know, been wondering what the knife that I carry is, I know I have talked about it on and off through while I've been using this knife over the past, especially over this year. But yeah, I just thought I'd go through it in a little bit more detail, give you some of the finer points of this knife. And yes, if you're in the market for a good quality bushcraft knife or survival knife, and you don't want to pay ridiculous money for one, then this is definitely one to go for. So yes. Anyway, I'm going to enjoy the rest of the day because it's a beautiful autumnal day out here, and hopefully I'm going to try and find some mushrooms if I can. On my way out here I've not seen any, apart from a few birch polypore, which I might collect a few more, because I've now got my mother and my daughter drinking birch polypore tea to help them so they don't get any colds and coughs, because I've been drinking that now for well over a year and I haven't had a cough or cold or flu at all. So they're drinking that, so a lot of my supplies have already dwindled, so I'm going to have to collect a few more for myself. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed this, guys. If this is the first time you've watched one of my videos, click subscribe down there and click the bell next to it as well, so then you'll get the notification in your inbox, say when I put a video out, because I put them out usually well, every week I put one out now. And yeah, I reckon the rate that we're going, I'll be doing a subscriber giveaway before Christmas, because we're coming up to 2,000 subscribers, which is fantastic. And that leads me to say thank you to everyone that has subscribed, and I shall see you in the next video. Bye for now.